Good evening there, everybody. What is happening? Hopefully, you all are having a wonderful day today. So, we're going to watch the CBS highlights here real quick, but I'm just going to talk about the fight review between Max Holloway and Alexander Volkanovski. So, if you guys didn't hear, Volkanovski did end up beating Max Holloway in the rematch. He ended up defending his belt, and of course, a lot of people ended up thinking that this was a robbery because of certain punch stats that were posted right after the fight when it came down to the overall, saying that Max landed in the majority of the rounds, and in the first two rounds, for sure, he did land more, and in round three, it might have been possible that he landed more, but it was not. It was not a great differential, and a lot of people, once again, they call this a robbery, and you're gonna have a bunch of people that, when it comes to a big card like this, they're gonna come in, and since they don't really know a lot about MMA, they're gonna come in and they're gonna claim that it's a robbery. This really wasn't a robbery, and to be quite honest with you, I scored the fight for Alexander Volkanovski. And a lot of people are going to get mad at that, but it is what it is. The way that Max Holloway fights, because he keeps on constant pressure with his opponents, he usually does get a little bit of favoritism with the judges and also with the fans a little bit. So a lot of people overall, they usually are confused when Max Holloway does not win the fight or that he doesn't win the fight by further. I had a friend, that I've known ever since middle school, and he watches a decent amount of sports, and obviously he tuned into this card, and he thought Holloway was robbed. He also thought that Holloway was robbed against Poirier, and it's a good thing he's not a judge because he has really no idea what the hell he's talking about. And it's no offense against my friend, but a lot of these people really don't know what the hell they're talking about. Because if you thought that Holloway won the Dustin Poirier fight, you probably should not be watching MMA, to be quite honest with you. But it is what it is. And, because personally in that Poirier fight, in the rematch at least, I thought Holloway only really won one round, maybe two. But Holloway, for whatever reason, pretty much just because of his pressurized style, he gets usually more points on the cards. Listen, what MMA and boxing, what they do is that whoever lands the more impactful punches, they're going to win the round. All right, whoever lands the more impactful strikes, they're going to win the round. So in the Dustin Poirier fight, for example, the first round was very clearly Dustin, and we'll get into the Volkanovski rematch here in a minute. Second round, Holloway looked to be winning it, but then Dustin made it close in the middle round, and then the last minute, clearly a Dustin round. Hurt him, nearly knocked him down on his ass a couple of times. Very clearly a Dustin round that round as well. Third round, back and forth, but Holloway seemed to hurt Dustin, so I gave Holloway that round. Fourth round, I believe that's where Dustin, it was very close in between. Max looked to have been edging it out, but then Dustin kneed him right in the face and caused that cut, so I gave Dustin that round. Then in the fifth round, they both seemed somewhat on the strikes. Dustin pretty much pinned him up against the cage for a good majority of the time from what I've seen. I gave Dustin that round as well. And a lot of people would be angry at that, but it is what it is. Max Holloway, I've already said this. Max Holloway is a very great fighter, but he does have an overrated skill set. Now, give credit to Max Holloway, because in this fight, I did not see as much of a one-dimensional fighter as I have from the past. Max Holloway did change things up. I saw him immediately go after the legs as well. He said, all right, if you want to get in a kicking war, we can get into it. I personally... I don't think that he can beat Volkanovski really in a leg kick war. He might have outlanded him a little bit yesterday, but I'm talking about in terms of more impactful strikes. When it comes down to it, I thought Max Holloway won the first two rounds. I thought that he won the first round. I thought that he was pretty much getting to Volkanovski. You could tell that Volkanovski was not expecting quite an, over-prepared Max Holloway right there, or a Holloway that was going to adjust because, once again, excuse me, yawning a bit there, I apologize. But once again, when it comes down to the overall, Max Holloway was heavily prepared. He started going after the legs. He started mixing his offense up with punches and kicks, which is something he did not do last fight, which is a big part of the reason why, in my opinion, he lost pretty much 5 rounds to 0. When it came down to the overall, Max Holloway, I thought he was very good for the first 2 rounds, but it was very clear from the third round on, Volkanovski was starting to pick up his pace. He was starting to adapt. He was starting to adjust. So it is what it is when it came down to. Bottom line is this. It all came down to that third round. There's some people overall saying that I thought Max Holloway could have won 4 rounds to 1. Well, no offense, but you really don't know what the hell you're talking about. If you thought Max Holloway won 4 rounds to 1, then you really have no idea what the hell you're watching. And I really don't have anything to, I really don't take anything you say seriously after that, to be quite honest with you. Because what does that mean? That means you don't know how to score. That means you don't know how to score an MMA fight for absolute shit. That's really what that means. And I'm not here to sugarcoat things. So it is what it is. Bottom line is this. I scored this fight for Volkanovski. Now, the third round, if you want to score that for Max as well, as long as the first two, you have an argument that Max Holloway could have won this fight. No problem with that whatsoever. But if you're arguing that he easily won this in 4 rounds to 1, no. No. Max Holloway, he did all right in the third round, but the problem with Max Holloway, and I always bring up this fight, Miguel Cotto versus Canelo Alvarez. When you look at a certain amount of the punches, it looked like Cotto actually landed more punches than Canelo Alvarez overall. But every one of two light punches that Miguel Cotto would throw against Canelo Alvarez, Canelo would land a whopping counter. And boxing and MMA, they always count who has the more impactful punches, who has the more powerful punches. And they say that Max Holloway landed the more powerful, impactful punches. I'm not actually sure how true that is. I have to rewatch it. But from what I've seen from round 3 on, Volkanovski started landing the more impactful punches. Holloway really wasn't doing an extreme amount in the third round, in my opinion, but landing those lead leg kicks. And a certain amount of people be like, well, those are still strikes. Why don't you count them? In MMA especially, what you notice is that those lead leg kicks, they're not necessarily completely counted, or they're not counted as, impactful strikes. And those ones are really counted. Those ones are not really even counted as a jab, because those kicks right there are not usually that powerful. They're not usually that impactful. And they realize that the fighter is playing it safe and that there's someone doing point fighting. An excellent example of this was when you took a look at the Valentina Shevchenko versus Amanda Nunes rematch. I thought that Valentina won that fight the first time I watched it, but then when I watched, it again, I said, well, I understand why the judges gave it to Amanda. And when I did rewatch it, I did give it to Amanda, because when it comes down to it, Shevchenko, in certain times, like Holloway here, did not land the more impactful strikes. She was landing more strikes in general, you could argue, in certain moments overall, because she was landing those lead leg kicks. But those lead leg kicks are only going to lead you so far. You have to land more impactful punches. And when I watched round 3, I think the more impactful punches went to Alexander Volkanovski. Round 4 and round 5 for sure went to Alexander Volkanovski. Not only did he take him down a couple times in round 5, he took him down once, I believe, in round 4, and started landing the more impactful punches. So no offense, but if you say he won 4 rounds to 1, you really don't know the hell you're talking about. Because those last 2 rounds were for sure Alexander Volkanovski rounds. I don't see 4 rounds that Holloway could have won. I could potentially see 3, but the judges, in my opinion, did they get it wrong? No. I have no problem with Alexander Volkanovski to get in this fight. I predicted Volkanovski to win this fight. I thought he actually might win it more dominantly this time. I was wrong. Max Holloway made certain adjustments that I thought he was not going to be able to make. So I give a lot of credit to Holloway. I give a lot of credit to Volkanovski. I'm sure Max believes that he wants the fight, and he has the right to think that, because Holloway overall, it was a very close fight. Now, he doesn't have the right to think that he won the first fight, because he got absolutely thoroughly dominated, in my opinion, in the first fight, even though there was close exchanges. But it is what it is, all right? So it's whatever. But when it comes down to the overall, that's just my view on it. I thought Volkanovski did very good yesterday, or I thought that he did enough to take the win. We're also going to talk about Jorge Masvidal versus Kamaru Usman upcoming. But I thought the judges gave it to the right man yesterday. I had no problem with it. Could have Max Holloway won the fight? He could have. It was a very, very close third round, but I have to give it to Volkanovski personally. Okay? So, it is what it is. So, this is no robbery. But a lot of people, because Jorge Masvidal was on this card, and Masvidal has attracted really a lot of the dumb casual fans, when it comes down to it overall, a lot of people are going to claim robbery. Whenever you have Nate Diaz or Jorge Masvidal on a card, basically the wannabe gangsters of the world, when it comes down to it overall, they're going to attract a lot of these, dumb people overall that really don't know anything about the sport. All right, but anyway, the wannabe gangster crowd when it comes down to it overall. So it is what it is. I've already talked about them. All right, Nate Diaz attracts this type of crowd. Masvidal attracts this type of crowd, and there's a few other fighters that attract this type of crowd as well. All right. And of course, those same people, what did they say about the Usman and Masvidal fight? Well, Usman fought a boring fight. He didn't fight overall the fight that we all expected. Well, you know what? What did you expect? And this is why overall, no offense, but if you don't know anything about MMA, you shouldn't be commentating on it. All right? So it is what it is, at least if you don't know the fighters. I don't know what people expected out of Kamaru Usman, but we're going to talk about that in my next video. I just thought that I would talk about this because a lot of people, including even Big John McCarthy, who is, I believe, a former MMA referee. I'm not sure if he refs anymore. A certain amount of other people thought that Max Holloway won 3 rounds to 2. All right, so they're not the only ones that said that. And I could see how some people could see, Max Holloway winning 3 rounds to 2. But personally, I give it to Volkanovski. And I'm also not the only one saying that either. Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, by the way, who did predict Max Holloway to win, he had Volkanovski 3 rounds to 2 as well. So it is what it is, and a few others from what I've seen. But anyway, that's really about it for that fight. I don't think there's much else to really talk about on that. Good luck to both gentlemen later on. It seems like one of them is going to have to face Zabit next, which would be a very decent fight. There is a lot of hype around Zabit, so we'll see overall what happens. And Zabit is a very talented fighter, but can he handle Max Holloway and Volkanovski? Because that will be the next test into the fold. All right, there's a lot of hype around almost any Russian fighter now because of Habib Nurmagomedov's success, especially from that area of Dagestan. But anyway, so we'll see what happens. It'll be very interesting. Good luck to both gentlemen. Volkanovski looks like he's going to be very hard to beat. And if Henry Cejudo overall does come back, that'll be a very interesting fight if he's able to go up against Volkanovski. And Cejudo's an A-grade fighter. I've seen him dominate Moraes. I've seen him dominate, TJ was a little bit drained, you can argue, but still. I've seen him beat Demetrius Johnson in a very, very close fight. And of course he did just beat Dominic Cruz. Now, of course, Dominic Cruz was, had like a 3.5-year layoff. That wasn't really the same Dominic Cruz, but I will give Henry this credit. There were certain things that Dominic overall looked very good in. He looked like he had good conditioning and good health. I just think that Henry Cejudo, in all honesty, I think he capitalized on a lot of Dominic Cruz's weaknesses. All right, so it is what it is, but, whatever. But that would be a very great fight between Henry Cejudo and Alexander Volkanovski. Would be a very, very interesting fight. I would love to see that fight personally. So it is what it is. But anyway, that's it for this video. That's it for this fight. Just wanted to talk on that because a lot of people, of course, are going to claim robbery. I personally don't see it as a robbery. I thought they gave it to the right guy. So it is what it is. So that's it for this video. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll talk to you all later.